have Pilar Opazo and Ramón Sangüesa. Pilar is a PhD student in the Department of Sociology in the University of Columbia, and she's actually doing her research here in Spain with us and with Ramón. She's been studying elBulli because one of her interests is innovation in organizations. And given that elBulli is undergoing a transformation, she's been studying this process of transformation of elBulli. And Ramón Sangüesa, he's a professor here at the university, at the Technical University of Catalonia. He has a PhD in computer science, in artificial intelligence. And he, in addition to his more sort of like research work, he's very well known for his very active online work and his contributions and interest in innovation, in promoting innovation, in studying innovation. He founded a lab called City Lab here in Barcelona, and he was the director of the lab until last year. And he has many initiatives related to innovation, and he's also collaborating right now with the University of Columbia on these topics. So please join me in welcoming them.
Okay, you start.
Can you hear me? Well, not really.
You have to hold it
Is the
closer
microphone
to you.
working?
Yeah. Hold it closer.
Now?
Yes, now?
No.
Yeah, much better.
That is working.
Okay, good. Let's see. What about mine? It's working? Okay.
Do you want
Just curious. This should work.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming this morning to our talk. The presentation we're gonna do today is titled "Language as a Platform for Innovation: Some Lessons from elBulli." This is a project supported by Telefónica, and it's a collaboration between elBulli, Telefónica, Columbia University, and the Technical University of Catalonia. So we want to give many thanks to Pablo Rodriguez, who is the Director of Research here at Telefónica R&D, and especially Oriol Loret, who has been supporting us in this project, and also, of course, to Ferran Adrià, for allowing this collaboration to happen. And special thanks also to David Lopez, who I can see there at the back, who has given us great support in many details and logistics of this project. And many thanks also to some people who had been working with us within the Telefónica R&D department, especially Andrea Freitas and Lars Stalling from the research and design aspects. What we're going to present today are very preliminary insights. We just started this project on July 2011, so this summer. And we hope that our talk can contribute to our thinking on food and technology, which is the topic that gathers us here today, and that can further motivate questions and new collaborations. We're open to new collaborations, so.
Okay. Yeah, just to give you a view of what we are aiming at. I mean, this idea that we have because these two different types of institutions here, two different types of backgrounds, they try to address the same problem, right? So on one side, we have people coming from social science. On the other side, people coming from the technology side, and let's call the hard sciences. So let's call them like that. So we are trying to approach a kind of, as it says here, kind of a hybrid research approach. I don't know if we are going to get these square tomatoes or something like that in terms of research, but the idea is to really interact, create a dialogue between both ways of looking at the same type of problem, right? And so, well, it also has some kind of historical reason for that. I've been involved with the Center for Organizational Innovation in Columbia for some years now. And, well, it's easy to go there with a background in technology and just land in a sociology department and not be seen like a strange being there. It's not the same experience in other places, right? So, yeah.
So by hybrid research, we mean that we're going to be using quantitative methodologies such as data mining, text data mining, and network analysis, and also qualitative methodologies such as discourse analysis, in-depth interviews, and archival research for studying the case of elBulli. We're going to study elBulli from an organizational innovations perspective, that is understanding elBulli as an organization and the collaborative practices undergone within elBulli and outside the boundaries of elBulli as the result of teamwork and therefore of sociological interest.
Yeah. So the idea is just to get insights from this perspective and to see what else we can get from that. And as Pilar was saying, this is mostly what we are doing, or we are starting to do. I mean, it is very preliminary. We want to stress this. This is kind of, it's part of work in progress, but part of what we plan to do, right? So what we are looking at right now is just to have a better idea of what is peculiar, what is strange, or what is not so strange about elBulli as an organization. elBulli has been seen as a kind of reference in creativity and innovation. So there are many lessons there that may be of use to the elBulli itself in the process of transformation from elBulli to elBulli Foundation, but also to other sectors. So the idea is just to more or less focus on these topics. Basically, already Pilar has said, and so the idea is just to move on to this type of process. But we now have, we all knew about elBulli as it was, right? And now it's in the process of transformation, where elBulli becomes something different. We don't know if it's bigger or square, or more square or more round, I don't know. It's in the process of building, and so the idea is just to see which aspects of the elBulli past, let's say past good performance, or the keys of the good performance of the past are still there at the elBulli Foundation, which are still useful, which are not. One of the interesting things of the track of elBulli is to unlearn what they have learned when it's convenient to, and also to look at themselves in a very open way and to redesign themselves always. So let's see what's there. So there are many aspects to be studied there.
Yeah, so we're going to try to understand the evolution of elBulli, especially at this moment when it's undergoing a profound process of reinvention towards elBulli Foundation. And for that, we're going to also try to study the diffusion of elBulli's practices, and such as concept and techniques, across time and social space, especially within Spain and the United States. For that, we plan to begin by studying the organizational narrative created by elBulli, and also from the perspective of outsiders. By organizational narrative, I mean the retrospective account that an organization made of itself in order to understand its past, its history and development. It's like what we do as individuals when we generate our CVs. We select some events of our history and disregard other events, and in order to create a coherent narrative about ourselves. This is what elBulli has done. It has extensively documented its history over time through documents and visual representations, audiovisual material too. So we're going to study that from the perspective of elBulli, with the idea that an organization's self-image has an impact in the organization's innovative capacities, and also from the perspective of outsiders.
Yeah, well, there's an important aspect there too, because the image of elBulli has gone from something very strange, right? Some kind of outlier that no one understood what they were doing in gastronomy, to something that has become kind of a reference, not only in gastronomy, but also in creativity and innovation. So there is a strong lesson there. So what we've doing at this, we'll say, it's a little more than a month, because we started preparing a lot of work before July, is just trying to understand the main dimensions that are at stake there, right? So what we did was different things, like, for example, going to elBulli before, in the final weeks of activity. That's one of the things that we did. We had another more politically incorrect photo here. It was how we were preparing the meeting on the beach of elBulli, right? Eating everything there before entering, right? Because we were going to be very focused, for example, in this time. But basically, we've been doing these direct interviews and also understanding and gathering a lot of secondary resources. And well, I mean, there are many things to talk, but today we want just to focus on one little thing about all we have been looking at, which from this perspective here, in the beginning, may be very fuzzy or hazy, but you will see how it connects with the rest of the technological effort and how it goes back and forth between both fields.
So we want to, wait 1 second, I'm sorry. We want to pay attention to one specific aspect of elBulli's culture that, in our view, lies at the heart of the organization's innovative capacity, which is the creation of a new culinary language. So we're going to explain what the importance of creating a language is specifically for the world of cuisine. What are the components of elBulli's language? What do we mean when we talk about a language of elBulli? And also trying to understand ways of tracing this language and the diffusion of this language. within the gastronomic fields and also in other fields.
Okay.
So this is a book written by a sociology professor at my department at Columbia University. It's called Accounting for Taste. Her name is Priscilla Ferguson. In this book, she studies, she points out that the consolidation of the gastronomic field in the 19th century in France, the production of written text was critical for the consolidation of the gastronomic field in France. Particularly, she mentions that the culinary theatrices of Carême, the proto-sociological essays of Brilliant Savarin, and later on the writings of Escoffier, for example, were very important in the formation of this field and in the diffusion of this field as such. So we believe, well, as she mentions here in this quote, cuisine constructs and upholds a community of discourse, a collectivity held together by words, by language. We believe that elBulli acknowledged the importance of written text in the diffusion of its practices and also undertook a very active role in this. Not only through the written texts, but also through visual representations. Since the 1990s, elBulli has been documented all its developments and achievements in a very exhaustive and detailed way. And it has developed, this is manifested in a series of catalogs of all the recipes of elBulli, an audiovisual catalog also. Pictures of the recipes.
Films.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to give you a more deep idea of what developing a codified language means for the field of cuisine specifically, is that the practice, food, the object with which the field of cuisine is dealing with is ephemeral in nature. Cooking is essentially a practical matter. And therefore, developing a language, a codified language to create in cooking allows to transfer this practical activity of cooking into an intellectual activity. And also, recipes and food are material in nature. They cannot be detached from the practical circumstances in which food is created and also from the particular groups that create it. But once they are abstracted into a language, these recipes and food can be stabilized into an intellectual discourse that therefore can be compared to other discourses. And taste, we can think of taste as something necessarily subjective, therefore attached to the individual. But if we abstract that into concepts and techniques, then we can talk about concepts and techniques in relation to one another. So just in brief, the creation of a codified language in the world of cuisine allows us to do a shift from food for thought, from the practical activity of cooking, to thought for food, to have an intellectual approximation to cooking.
Okay. So from the ones of us that came from artificial intelligence, let's say the classical view on which stresses the importance of knowledge representation, that resonated very, very much. So there are many ways of objectivizing this kind of knowledge. I think we are going to have a kind of an explanation of this in a moment here. So I'm not going just to delve into that because the experts are here. So this idea, for example, when Pilar was talking about taste and its possible objectivation, here we have one way of doing that. I mean, just this is a study about the pages of flavors in different cultures and how it, and you could reveal some aspect of this connection by means of this type of network. And well, you have something that is a representation here that you can start to talk about in a more abstract and more neutral way, and then to do some other types of treatment. We're not going to delve very much on that now because there are, as I said, the experts are here. So let's review a bit some of the known components of the elBulli's language with also some other remarks that they also make more explicit this connection.
So yeah, the main components of elBulli's language are four main building blocks or words. We can say family of words, which are products or ingredients, technology such as equipment and utensils, preparations such as concept and techniques. Concept could be something like the constructivism, and techniques, serification, for example, some famous one that they have created, and styles and characteristics. Altogether, these different families of words create the style of the cuisine of elBulli and the recipes. And we, for example, this, according to elBulli, the search for a new word can derive from any of these 4 paths. It can derive from one of these paths in isolation or from the recombination between these 4 paths. For example, when a new technique is created, such as the foam, when the foam was created, it is incorporated into this language as a new word to create, as a consequence, new recombinations in the future. So elBulli's language operates in the organization, we believe, as a generative platform that opens and multiplies the possibilities of combination as a platform for innovation.
And our way, so to speak, is just that the result of these combinations are not just the recipes, but also, let's say, operators on recipes and styles. So in a way, it relates very well with this idea of combinatorics and heuristics and search spaces. Although they tend to talk about this, I mean, the elBulli's organization in their own language, of course. And when you hear, for example, the way that they relate to this kind of way of using the language, they talk in words, paragraphs, and sentences, no, for example.
So just to mention something about what we said earlier is that, interestingly, elBulli has mentioned that one of the most interesting innovations that they have developed lies at the crossroads between these different words. We're proposing here to look at language as a technology. We usually think of technologies as the machines, tools, and hardware equipment that we use in productive activities, such as the material artifact that Kenton was talking about. But technology can also be these conceptual devices that we use for the systematic study of a craft, in this case, the craft of cooking. And so this was mentioned very explicitly in New York City when Ferrano went to visit and gave a talk. I had the opportunity to go. And he talked about the fact that they create words. With those words, they create sentences. And with those sentences, we create paragraphs. The more words we have, the more unique our language will be. And he also, just 2 weeks ago, did a talk in New York also, where he drew this triangle, and he mentioned that at the lower levels of the triangle, we can find methods of creativity such as evolution and adaptation, which we can think are less complex or less complex. And at the upper levels of this triangle, he mentions that we have the method of creativity, which is the culinary creativity. This is what we understand as this notion of language, of creating a language as a generative platform to innovate.
There are aspects also of this language in a way that they find a kind of new playground, not just for elBulli, but for the rest of actors around them. In a way, they've created, by using this kind of creative combination of words and paragraphs and sentences in the parlance, right? What they've created actually is a different playground, right? So everyone is referring to this playground now. So it's a way also in terms of organizational strategy, although they insist that they don't have a strategy, right? That this is a strategy, effectively, in a way that they are creating a playground where everyone has to go and play, right? By using this.
And also, when a language becomes established within a given community, in this case within elBulli, for example, and outside elBulli, or the larger movement of progressive cuisine or experimental cuisine, when this language becomes reflective, it does not only allow people to express their ideas and thoughts about by using this language, but also to find ways to refine this language and to transform this language. And this is something that we want to explore in our research.
Yeah, well, and this also just it has very practical consequences, right? It's not just that we are looking at elBulli in terms of just the generation of ideas, which is something which is equated to creativity sometimes, but this also goes all the way towards real innovation, right? Real innovation in the sense that innovation is not just creating ideas; it's actually creating products and getting them really accepted by a bigger context, right? In a way, you could really measure this. There are a number of recipes that is really very huge in comparison with other previous, let's say, reference in gastronomy. For example, Nathan Millwall was talking about not just the recipes, but the number of techniques they have created because they are very systematic in the use of the language. I don't remember the exact numbers, but for example, let's see that it's very huge difference. Like for example, Nathan was talking about Escoffier's contribution in terms of techniques, and he mentioned something like 150. And then with all the time that Escoffier was active and the people were active, and then he compared that with elBulli, and the number maybe is something like 5 or 6 times more, which is a lot, right? So there are many ways of really measuring and tracking this, and we are looking at some possibilities of really making our case, just to really contrast in a research effort, just to say, hey, there is hard evidence of this, or the hard it can be, right? So the idea is just to have a look at how these techniques and recipes have been identified by the wider field of gastronomy and other actors there, right? How we started to do that, okay? At the very beginning, let's say the qualitative part was leading and is still leading, and so we did this initial ethnographic approach with the initial, the kernel of elBulli, and then the wider galaxy around it with other types of actors, like, for example, former chefs, collaborators, competitors to School of Cuisine, and other scientific groups, and we plan just to keep going on these kinds of actors and expanding and seeing how they use the language, how they relate to this. But there are things that we are going to do now also. We've done part of it by doing analysis of the books or articles that the elBulli itself has created, but also now we are moving on to explore this base of document so that we can do some part of like an automatic scanning, so that we want to get, apart from the words that we know that are important, or the words that we've been extracting through, let's say, qualitative means, we are going to get other type of words that are of relevance there, and we'll see how these words are used outside elBulli and how they correlate, so that we have some more evidence about this role of diffusion and, let's say, I would say, dominance in a way, and which moment this change happens in the use of the rest of these words in the rest of the community. This is one way of we're going to address that. As I said, this was kind of a plan for work more than what we already have done, right? Yeah.
We're going to also use a data set that elBulli has generated about every time elBulli has appeared in the press. So we're going to try to understand the ways in which the different trends of the diffusion of elBulli by being conceived at the beginning, we can say, as a misfit within its field, within the field of cuisine and in other fields, to being conceived as a model of innovation. So we're also going to study that. And we believe that this is important to understand the legitimacy processes that are involved in constituting innovation as such.
Okay. That also we are going to do, and we were very happy just to follow your talk about all the importance of the social networks in gastronomy. So what we are going to do is just, let's say, using the words to start with, is just to have kind of a lens, a focus to look at the wider communities that are online. So, but why we are going to do that? It's not just a simple word of scanning and finding who is using this, but it's just kind of a hint of where to look at and to find people that are relating to these words, and we'll talk about how. The idea is just to find not just who is talking about that, but also who is doing something with that, right? So we are working with a tool for analyzing communities that is based not just in finding the influencers, or the ones that are, let's say, communication hubs, so that a lot of information passes through them. It's just actually to see which part of the communities can be seen as very active and actually bringing more innovation. In that sense, is using this kind of wider domains of knowledge and language is how people are really exchanging knowledge and creating new knowledge. So we are using a construct that is called a structural fault, that was developed by Balázs Bedres in Hungary and David Starkey at the Sociology Department in Columbia, which gives a good hint. It just, let's talk like that, a hint of who may be an innovator around a community. So that's very important also.
And if we're able to identify specific innovators, we would, going back to the idea of hybrid research, we would like to go back to them and do in-depth interviews, not only to understand to what extent they are familiar with elBulli's language, but also how they're using this language in practice and perhaps extending this language.
Okay, so to summarize, it's a continuous loop going between a qualitative approach and quantitative approach. I mean, by quantitative, I would say that it's automatic, right, or inspired by methods of, let's say, statistics and computer science and artificial intelligence, right? So what we are doing is just going through several loops of this during the next months, so that we get first inspiration, let's say, one of either of the two extremes, and that fits the other one, so that we get a better knowledge. And this is going to be done first, let's say, to understand a bit of the past, but actually to understand what's happening right now in the process that the elBulli is just starting. Just to give you a fast idea. For example, we know some of the actors in the present bully context, like the Alicia Foundation, universities, media, etc. But the new context of the bully, well, is to be seen, right? Probably there will be many actors that will be repeated there. But one of the things is, for example, last week, Ferran Adrià was insisting very much in a presentation that he gave at Columbia Business School to the students there, was saying, hey, for us it's very important that elBulli is going to operate in or with the internet, right? But we still don't know how or how we are doing. But one thing was sure in the words of Ferran, and he insisted very much in saying that, it's for us will be a different way to get the pressure to be creative that we used to have with the restaurant, right? The normal operation of the restaurant. I mean, just having your customers there, you have to actually surprise them or just keep them happy, as they say, because this is one of the important words of elBulli, be happy, right? Happiness, magic and happiness are very important there. So the idea is, okay, so that's the new environment of elBulli Foundation. There are people there, out there on the internet, okay, they can just give, let's say, ratings or whatever, but we are looking for the innovators there, probably as a good source of pressure, right? And so that's what we are going more or less to focus on. Of course, this is, we are just, let's say, hey, this is our guidelines. We are still, let's say, exploring the ground. So there are many things that actually, the actual realization of that may change in the next months. But basically, our idea is, hey, locate the innovators, look at what's the role that they have in putting pressure on the institution, and see what else happens.
And we would also like to try to find ways in which elBulli has been portrayed as such a deviant case from all other organizations, from all other restaurants also, but we believe that this organizational approach, understanding elBulli as an organization, can perhaps give us insights on in which ways elBulli's knowledge and experience can be extrapolated to other kinds of organizations or creative endeavors in general.
So just to finalize, or to end, basically what we've seen, our general point of view is the important thing for an organization to innovate is to really create a solid platform for innovation. In the case of elBulli, they have been very wise in just using the language as a platform for innovation, a very solid one. And the idea is just to experiment and this is what our guiding principles in just devising this kind of research. And the important thing is how that crossovers between different backgrounds add to that, right? Mm-hmm. So only just to finish, to say that we are really thrilled by getting into this mess, right? Because it's going to be a very interesting and very bumpy ride just to follow. But, well, we are really very interested, and we also are very interested in the way we can combine, in a novel way, two types of traditions here. One comes from the social science, the other one from the heart and technology, hard science and technology, and see how they can enrich each other. And we cannot just give you results right now, but we hope to give you them in something like 1 year and see what part of these insights were.
Thank you. So there is a question right here in the front.
Where is it?
This is a fascinating project, and you've got your work cut out to come up with elBulli's knowledge and language. We're at a point now when there are a number of other very creative and innovative restaurants that are appearing throughout Europe and the rest of the world. And I wondered how you could look at the conversations and the way in which they borrow each other's ideas and concepts with elBulli, and how you might look at that discourse as well as the discourse within elBulli itself. Because I think that we really are at a critical time now where it's happening at a lot of places.
Mm-hmm. Well, in a way, I guess that our interest in just looking at what's going on online is a part of the conversation in that very reduced sense. Okay, it may help in this view, but at the moment, I mean, it would add to the dimensions of the current research effort to go and just do a really in-depth research of the other restaurants. We wish we could. We had enough resources and people just to do that. But for the time being, what we are going to do is just to follow as we said. And then probably by, I don't know, maybe by the spring of next year, we can just think about how to scale this up and bring in this other knowledge, which for us is very important too.
I think that it could be also a way to get at this discourse by the in-depth interviews that we're going to conduct with people. We're going to begin with people in New York, restaurants in New York, and also here in Barcelona. But I think we can, it can give us a way to reconstruct this discourse and the networks from bottom up.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
The innovation organization is very important for the successful of elBulli, but what do you think about the genius, the talent, the innate of Ferran Adrià? That is important also.
Probably helps a little, yes.
I think that it's very important to say that the talent of Ferran Adrià is undeniable, and it's a critical aspect of this. And this is something that is very important to consider at this moment in time. Now, for example, that Steve Jobs, the whole idea of Apple, and now that Steve Jobs is not there, what is going to happen with Apple? The kind of same thinking we can extrapolate to elBulli. So it's a very important question. I think that elBulli has something different from other organizations, which is that it has systematized not only the way in which they create, but also all their creations. And this allows us to have a, they have created this level of understanding how the organization creates at a macro level, not at the level of the individuals necessarily. So I think that, because of developing this detailed and exhaustive documentation about themselves, they enable us as observers, as social scientists, to get at how they create independent of the figure of Ferran Adrià. Of course, considering that his talent is, it's very important.
Like genius for organization and organization for genius. Like food and food.
One more question?
Question here, there.
Ramon, so I want to ask you a normal question from my side.
Can you speak other places?
So what I want to know is regarding to the first talk, where we've been talking about slow food, tradition, right? So where you have all these years of long knowledge on food, then you have all this explosion of creation, a lot of innovation, but most of this is just ephemeral, because you have every year a new complete menu at Bulli. Even if you have fortunate and you have been there 3 times, then you are unable to try the first one or others. And you won't never try it again, because even if you try to repeat them, you won't have the machinery to do that. So then maybe all this innovation that is very good, is very interesting as a phenomenon, it's a media phenomena, and you are really learning about technology. So it's just an outsider in the food phenomenon. And how you will, do you believe that really you will impact on the food that we have every day? It will really innovate in the ways we are having new tastes or new menus, or this $5 challenge? It really will do?
Well, I think that's more a matter of opinion. I think it's not the focus of our current research. Or we are trying to, let's say, answer one part of your question, which is basically what's the impact, at least in the kernel of the gastronomy area, right? In a way. So we're trying to just have some data and some evidence that this is really happening, right? In terms of what, but there is a very interesting twist to your question about, hey, what is the wider impact to the day-to-day practices of people? Okay, I try to do certification at home, right? And for you, I will just share that I almost have been successful in doing a certification of gazpacho, right? But, well, this is a very personal kind of success. But I don't know, you're right. I think that the wider impact probably has to arrive, and we have to really see how part of this first part of the language is easy to communicate to non-specialists, one thing. Second thing, not just the language, but the practices are made also easier for people just to use. I don't know. That's my personal take on that, right? Yeah, and the fact that they introduce this kind of new conversation about the conversation of cooking in a way that, I mean, even my mother, who is 80, is talking about the construction at home. So when I visit them, she's still doing a paella in a traditional way. But nevertheless, it's in the language. So something that brings these kind of things closer, and then added with the transparency you were mentioning, okay, there is a matter of just willing to try and to experiment that, which also is another kind of the messages that maybe not so directly are also around elBulli Galaxy in a way.
Yeah. There is something that we believe that elBulli has exploited very well, which is that the understanding of innovation, not just as having an original idea, not as even the implementation of our original idea, but the recognition of the environment of that original idea. And so, yeah, we believe this project can also contribute to our understanding of innovation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's thank you, the speakers.
Thank you.
And you will be around the rest of the day, right?
Of
so I think, I think there were other people with questions, so feel free to grab them over the coffee break or later for lunch and, go deeper into the questions. And now I'll